I'm now going to look at Part B of Unit 2, and this is all about creating a couple of forms, testing and evaluating. So let's have a look at the forms. For Part B, we're given a new task scenario. So let's have a look at this. SmartArt has partially developed a database that will eventually merge with the database you created in Part A. A piece of art must have a name. A piece of art must have a selling price of at least £100 and no more than £2,000. A piece of art must belong to an artist. A piece of art is either available or sold. Sales are analysed. Artists are given a rating of 1, 2 or 3 and the highest rating is 1. The database will record information about pieces of art, sales and ratings. Quite important to note that the structure of the tables that you're provided with should not be changed in any way. For example, do not add validation to the tables, do not change data types, and you will only be required to use TBL Artist and TBL Art. So you're provided with a database to create these forms on. Make sure you don't make any changes as indicated here in the notes. There are 2 forms to be created. Form A is an input form to add a piece of art. We'll look at the detail in a minute. This is quite a straightforward form. And then B is an input form to analyse the sales and add an artist rating. Now this is a more complex form always in this paper. B, the second form, it will always involve some sort of analysis, calculations, bringing fields together from different tables. But let's have a look at Form A first of all. So an input form to add a piece of art. The form should be ready for data entry. The name of the piece of art must be present. The selling price must be within the specified range, and we have that in the task scenario. A piece of art must be assigned to a valid artist. Valid data should be appended to the art table. A save message should display, and the form should be cleared, ready for the next data entry. A suitable error message should appear when invalid data is being used. I'm in Access now, and I've opened up the database for Part B. It's a good idea just to have a quick look at it before you start doing the forms. So this is TBL Art. Let's have a look at it in Design View. Okay, so we know that the ID is auto number, so the user's not going to be entering that. So we're now ready to start creating our first form. So we're going on to Create, and we can use Form Wizard for this. And we need to select the table. We're going to do it to enter a piece of art, so that's TBL Art. And we want all the selected fields and then next. Leave it as columnar. Always give your forms a prefix FRM. Just make it a little bit clearer what the form's about. So art input and then finish. And then we've got here a very basic form, and we're going to make quite a lot of changes to this. And again, that's what the examiner's looking for. It's a good idea to have in your head a house style that you're going to apply to your report and your form. The examiner is looking for formatting features that are common in the report and the form. And you'll see that when I start to format my forms, how similar they look to the report. The first thing I'm going to do is change some of the properties for the form. For example, I'm going to take off the record selectors at the side, the navigation at the bottom here, take off the scroll bars, and I'll make the form data entry. I'm going to be using the property sheet quite a lot. Make sure it's selected on form, and if you can't remember, oops, let's just change this a bit, where things are, it's a good idea to use this alphabetical sorting feature here and put them in order. So let's just look on all. So we said data entry would be yes. We said navigation buttons would be no. We said the record selectors would be no. And we said the scroll bars would be neither. The next thing I'm going to do is some formatting. When you're creating these forms, you can actually get some marks for your formatting. And even though your form may not work correctly, it will get you some marks. And it's something that's easy to do and pick up some marks. So I'm going to change the heading, I'm going to change the form header, background colour, and I'm going to make the labels here clearer, and I'm going to resize the controls here as well. The next thing I'm going to do with this artist ID combo box, at the moment it's just one column. I need it to have two columns to display the artist ID and the number. So if I go into Format and come down to Column Count, turn that into 2, that gives me 2 columns, and then we need to change the column width. And I think the first column can be 8.5 centimetres and the second column 3.5 centimetres. I'm back in Form View now. Let's just have a look at this artist ID. If we click on the down arrow, you can see our column's not quite wide enough. We need to make it a little bit wider, but you can see we've got 2 columns now. The next control that I'm going to change is this status one. It needs to have either sold or available. Though it isn't requested in the task, I'm going to turn this into a value list. Again, allow value edits no and limit to list yes. And the row source type for this is going to be a value list. And in the row source, we're going to type what's going to appear in the list. So it's either sold or available. So back in Form View, if we click on Status, we've got sold or available. Just one more change to the controls. Selling price, that's going to be currency. So I'm just going to make sure that is formatted to currency. We're now ready to put the button on the form and create the macro to validate the data entry. I'm now ready to create the macro. Do a right mouse click on the button and go to, let's just pull this down a minute. Right mouse click, build event. So if you do a right mouse click on the button and build event, we're ready to start entering the commands for the macro. We start with an if, and we're going to make sure that the start name is present. I'm going to use this null. Always close the bracket. If that is null, what do we want to do? We want to put in a message box. And the message is and always give a title to your boxes. Then it's add else if. And now we're going to check the selling price. So if the selling price is less than 100 or the selling price is greater than 2,000, we need a message box. The selling price must be between £100 and £2,000. We've then got another else if, and here we're going to check that the artist ID is not null. If that is null, we need a message box. And then the final one is an else. So if all those are okay, there's no errors, we want to save the record. And we'll add a message box. And then the final thing we want it to do is to go to a new record that's empty, ready for the next data entry. We can do this by using go to record, and we just need to make sure that record is on next. Just recap on these ifs. We start off with an if, the first one, and then they're all else if, until you get to the bit where you're going to save, and that's just a straightforward else. Save and close. Do a quick test. So let's leave the art name blank. We'll set the selling price in of 100. We'll select an artist ID and select a status. Save record. Art name must be entered. There needs to be a space in there. Let's put in a name. And we'll do a selling price of less than 100. Selling price is invalid. Let's do a selling price of over 2,000. Let's try saving one without an artist ID. And there's the message saying the art record is saving. And when we've saved, it's cleared the form and it's blank ready for the next data entry. So we've completed the first form, Form A, want to add a piece of art. Let's have a look at this second form. This is an input form to analyse sales and add an artist rating. The form should not include validation of any fields. The form should not include an automated routine to save the data. There must be a combo box in order to select the artist. There must be a combo box in order to select the rating. Once the user selects an artist, information for that artist should be generated and displayed in fields on the form. We want the artist's email, the total number of pieces of art, the number of pieces of art sold, the highest price for a piece of art, lowest price of a piece of art, the total amount of money made from sales. This is a good example on a form where we're going to create combo boxes, two different types, and also we're going to use the DSUM, DMAX, DMIN and DCOUNT functions. Let's have a look at creating the form. This form, because it's not an input form based on one table, we're going to use create and we're going to use form design. I'll put on all the controls and do the formatting first, then we'll have a look at making amendments to the controls. to hide the key for this and just have the artist's surname displayed in the combo box. So all I've done there is set up a value list, and what will appear in the list is 1, 2 or 3. I'll now put on the controls for the data that's going to be retrieved about the artist and the sales, and I need 6 controls in total. I'm now going to name this combo box here because we're going to need that when we come to do the functions to find the email and carry out the counts, the min, the max and the sum. We call it CBO artist name. Let's deal with these controls here. Let's do the artist email first. Click on data and the control source. If you click on the build button, we're going to use DLOOKUP, open bracket. Okay, first thing we're going to need to provide is the field that we want to look up in the table artist. That's going to be artist email. Then a comma, and then open quotes again. And then we need to tell it which table artist email is in. So that's in TBL artist. And close the quotes, a comma. The next bit, the criteria. This is where we're going to tell match with whatever's in CBO artist name with the artist ID in this table, TBL artist. So CBO close the quotes, close the bracket. So let's just recap on that. So DLOOKUP, the first thing is we tell it which field we want it to pick up when we're doing this DLOOKUP. We want the artist email. We tell it the table that we're looking at, TBL artist. And then we tell it what to match with. So we're looking CBO artist name on our form. And we're going to match that with artist ID in the table. Now, for these DLOOKUPs, DSUM, DMAX, DMIN, etc. to work, we need to make sure when this CBO artist name has changed, that we should do a requery that makes the record current. These DLOOKUPs, DSUM, DMIN, DMAX, when we do them, actually work. So if we do a right mouse click and build event, do macro builder, what we want is a requery. Save and close. So here we are in form view, and if I select a different artist, you can see that the email's changed. Just while we're here, that email control's not quite wide enough, we need to change that. Okay, let's do the number of pieces of art that have been created. This is going to be a DCOUNT. And a DCOUNT works very similar. You want to count the art IDs in TBL art. And it's where that, whatever's in that control, CBO artist name, matches with the art ID in the table. Close the quotes, close the bracket. Just check it before we press enter on that. So DCOUNT, we want to count the number of pieces of art, so we can use the art ID, and that is in TBL art. And what we need to do is ask it whatever's in CBO artist name, we need to go match that with the artist ID in the table. So again, here we are in form view. If I change the artist, it's changed the number of pieces of art. This control works out the number of pieces of art that have been sold. So we need to do a similar DCOUNT on the art ID. We also need to check that status is equal to sold. just a single quote round sold. So quick recap, do a DCOUNT of the art IDs, and in TBL art, where there's a match between what's in CBO artist name and the artist ID in TBL art, and where the status equal sold. Just a quick check in form view for this artist Burles, number created 4, number sold 3. If we change the artist, let's try someone else. Okay, for this one, number created 3, number sold 3. The next control is going to find the minimum art price. We use that using DMIN. Again, it's a very similar process. This time we're looking at the selling price field. In TBL art. And again, where there's a match between what's the control on the form and the artist ID in TBL art. Quick check, DMIN, look in the selling price field in TBL art, where there's a match between CBO, artist name and artist ID. So finally the minimum art price. I'm going to format that to money when I've finished. At the moment it's just a number, it will be better currency. Do the maximum art price next. This time we're going to use DMAX. Quick check, DMAX, look at selling price in TBL art, where's the match between CBO artist name and artist ID. Forgot to close the bracket. Let's put the bracket on there. And again, just a quick check on the form to make sure it's picked up the maximum art price. And then the last one we're going to do is this total art sales. So for this one, we're going to use the function DSUM. Little recap on this one, DSUM, i.e. add up the selling prices and TBL art. There's a match between CBO artist name and artist ID and the status is sold, because obviously they've got to be sold. We're adding up the sales. Quick look at the form, we've got a total of our sales there. Final thing for me is I'm going to narrow down these two fields here, which have got the number of art sold and the number created, and I'm going to format these last 3 to currency. There's our form completed. The artist name is selected and put in a rating, and it brings back the artist email, the number of art created, the number sold. We've got the minimum art price, maximum art price, and total art sales. That completes the second form. Next thing to do will be to test and then evaluate.